Okay, ready to dive in. Today, we're taking a deep look at A Dirty Word. It's a memoir, and the subtitle is How a Sex Writer Reclaimed Her Sexuality.
Sounds intriguing.
It is. It's very personal and honest. What we're trying to do here, for everyone listening, is unpack the author's journey. How she figures out her own feelings about sex, how her experiences, good and bad, shaped her views on relationships, and honestly, those unspoken rules that society has about all this.
Right. Those expectations we all kind of absorb. We're working with excerpts from the memoir so we get her perspective directly.
Exactly. And for everyone listening, we're going to be pulling out key takeaways. Stuff about female sexuality, which is often portrayed so simplistically, the nuances of consent, and how, honestly, who we are can be shaped by both our intimate lives and what we do professionally.
It's all connected, isn't it?
It really is. Fair warning, there are moments that are surprising and some struggles I think will be relatable for a lot of people. Ready to get started?
Absolutely. Let's go.
Okay, so the book starts with her in Boston. She's living in a brownstone apartment, and she describes it in detail.
Yeah, her bedroom, she makes it clear, is this very ordered space. A twin bed, neatly made, books piled up. It's very contained. But then, right outside her door, it's chaos.
Total contrast. Like, she describes a futon covered in Christmas lights. There's even a mannequin wearing a construction hat.
It really sets up this sense of maybe her inner world is more controlled, than the reality of being in your early 20s.
Makes sense. And it's in that more ordered space that she gets this assignment for her internship
Yeah.
to review the sex toy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's
a
that.
large purple double-ended dildo.
I mean, not your typical internship
Yeah.
tasks.
And she says the only other time she'd seen anything like it was a quick, kind of disturbing glimpse in that film, Requiem for a Dream.
Oh, right.
She even says she's clueless about how it's supposed to be used. It's fascinating.
It is. What's so striking here, for everyone listening, is her lack of prior knowledge. It's refreshing in a way, like she's really trying to figure it out, holding this object, and then she has this encounter with the lead intern, slightly awkward, but it tells us so much.
It does.
The intern brings her water-based lubricant and specifically warns her about silicone-based lube. It could damage silicone toys, apparently.
That's good to know.
Yeah, the whole thing really shows how her professional life is suddenly mixed up with this very personal, intimate topic.
Yo,
It makes you think, right? Like how we learn about sexuality can happen in these strange, unexpected ways.
for sure. Okay, but then the memoir shifts, and we get into her early experiences with sex,
Yeah.
specifically losing her virginity. There's this guy, Travis,
Okay.
and it's really intense. She says she murmured, "I'm not sure," but she never actually said no or stop.
That's difficult.
It is, and the way she describes it, she uses the phrase, "I felt like I was taken."
That's so powerful and really points to a lack of agency. Even when someone isn't explicitly saying no. For everyone listening, this is a big deal. Even if there isn't a clear refusal, her feeling taken suggests a lack of control, maybe even violation. And unfortunately, it sets up a pattern in their relationship that's troubling.
Yeah, really troubling. She goes on to describe Travis repeatedly ignoring her comfort, like making fun of her inexperience, commenting on her body in ways that were unwanted. He even tried to have anal sex with her without lube
Oh my God.
and pressured her for blowjobs even though she was clearly uncomfortable.
That's awful. This, if we step back for a second, for everyone listening, shows a dynamic that's sadly all too common. One partner is putting their own needs above the other person's boundaries and well-being. The anal sex attempt without lube, that's not just inconsiderate, it's dangerous. It really highlights how crucial mutual respect and communication are.
Couldn't agree more. Their whole relationship sounds incredibly unstable. Like, she says they broke up 4 times in just 6 months.
Mhm.
It did end, eventually. And then she goes off to college in Boston, trying to make sense of it all. She starts writing poetry to process what she went through.
Using art to deal with trauma, well, it makes sense.
It does, but then in a poetry workshop, a classmate points out that the way she's linking sex and crying in her poems is problematic.
Oh, that's an interesting observation.
It is, and what's striking is that the author hadn't even realized she was doing that. It shows how deeply those negative experiences were shaping her understanding of intimacy.
Like her emotional world was totally intertwined with those sexual experiences, but then something starts to shift.
Right. She mentions taking this class called Sensual Movement and starts reading feminist books on sexuality.
That's huge. For everyone listening, this is a turning point. She's actively seeking out new information, new ways of thinking that challenge what she thought she knew about sex. The sensual movement class suggests exploring her physicality in a more positive way.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
And this starts to affect her next relationship. She talks about actively deconstructing sex with her new boyfriend, like experimenting, taking control.
It's like she's going from passive and uncomfortable to engaged and in charge of her own pleasure. Education and a shift in mindset can make a huge difference.
Then there's this little detail that seems small, but is actually significant. She's working a part-time job and finds out a coworker has ties to the sex industry.
Okay.
And the author sees this person as a kindred spirit.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it suggests that she's becoming more accepting of sexuality as something that can be talked about openly. It's part of destigmatizing sex for herself.
Makes sense.
So then she moves back to New Jersey, gets a corporate job, but starts her own writing on the side. And get this, she briefly gets into attending sex parties and porn parties.
Wow, okay.
But she makes it clear it was outside her comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
Still, those experiences had an impact. Even if she didn't fully embrace that scene, it exposed her to different ways people express themselves sexually.
It broadens her perspective. Even if it wasn't for her, it shows her the range of what's possible.
And then, back in Boston, she starts dating again after Travis.
Yeah.
We meet Stephen and Philip. And unfortunately, she falls back into that pattern of just letting things happen, even when she's uncomfortable.
Oh, that's frustrating, right? Like, you want her to break free from that.
I know. But it shows how tough it is to shake off those ingrained habits, even when you want to change.
Absolutely. Unlearning those patterns takes time.
But there's a big moment with Philip. She straight up tells him, I'm not going to have sex with you.
Yes, finally.
Right. It's such a simple statement, but it feels like a huge shift for her.
Totally. Setting that boundary so clearly is empowering. It shows she's starting to prioritize her own needs and comfort.
Now I get to Michael. He becomes a significant relationship for her. And from the start, she's really upfront with him. She tells him about her views on monogamy, like, right away.
Okay, that's bold.
It is, but it shows she's evolving. She's not trying to fit herself into a box that doesn't feel right.
Authenticity, right.
Yes. Their first time having sex is actually while they're watching this awful horror movie, Rumpelstiltskin.
Rumpelstiltskin, the horror movie.
I know, right? But even with that kind of funny backdrop, Michael's impatience triggers a huge reaction in her. It's clearly coming from her past.
That juxtaposition is interesting. For everyone listening, I think it shows how trauma can linger. Like, the movie is silly, but her emotions are intense because Michael's behavior probably echoes what she went through before.
Exactly. And then, a huge turning point. She tells Michael about Travis.
Wow, that's a big step.
It is. And it doesn't magically solve everything, but it does lead to new challenges. She starts experiencing psychosomatic pain during sex.
That's complex.
Very. And she feels this sense of obligation to Michael, like she owes him something.
Sharing that kind of trauma is a major act of trust, but it shows how hard it is to heal from those experiences, especially in a new relationship.
They break up multiple times, and she slowly starts realizing that it's not all about Michael's actions. She's contributing to these unhealthy patterns, too.
That self-awareness is so important for growth. Recognizing your own role in a relationship's problems is huge.
And then, her freelance sex writing career takes off. She starts with reviews, sex toys, pornography.
Okay.
And she's surprised by how much people want content that's open, even funny, about sex.
Makes you think about how we talk about these things.
Totally.
Yeah.
And at first, she sees her writing as a way to fix herself.
It's fascinating how her work and personal healing become intertwined. It shows how powerful it can be to use what you do to explore yourself.
She's also going to sex-positive events, but she feels this disconnect between how people see a sex writer and her own struggles.
I can imagine people make assumptions.
Oh, yeah. Men assume things and women react in all kinds of ways. Some share their own experiences, some are judgmental.
That range of reactions tells you a lot about how we still view women talking about sex.
She talks about the cool girl idea, the woman who's up for anything, never complains.
That's such a harmful trope.
It is, and she admits to playing that role sometimes. So she's battling this desire to seem open while also needing to protect herself.
That internal conflict is so relatable for a lot of women. It speaks to the pressure to be chill while also knowing you have to set boundaries.
Her therapist, Dr. Jill, becomes really important. It takes time for her to understand what happened in the past, like the connection between Travis and her sexual problems isn't clear at first.
It emphasizes the complex and often delayed effects of trauma. Patience is key, and professional guidance can make such a difference.
There's this uncomfortable moment at a networking event with a pushy tech guy.
Ugh, I hate those.
Right. And she realizes she used to avoid confrontation. Like that cool girl thing again?
It shows those patterns are hard to break.
They are. Then there's this funny story about a sex toy mishap on a romantic getaway. It involved a blowguard.
A blowguard, I'm not even sure what that
You
is.
and me both. It's not important, but the whole thing is funny, but also kind of sad. It shows how those expectations around using sex toys don't always meet reality.
We've all been there.
Right. And things with Michael get rekindled, but she's still dealing with low libido and often feels like she's having sex for him, not herself.
Oh, that's a tough spot to be in. Trying to please your partner but neglecting your own needs?
They go to a sex party together, and Michael isn't into it at all, but she's curious.
That's interesting how their reactions differ so much.
Totally. She describes it as sensory overload, different themed rooms, S&M stuff, even a tickle room.
A tickle room, wow.
Right. It's all about expanding her horizons, even if those specific things aren't for her. And then she has this intimate portrait done, and it gives her this brief but powerful feeling of being okay in her own skin.
That's so important. Body acceptance, even if it's fleeting, is such a huge part of this journey.
To deal with the pain and low libido, she tries everything. Doctors, homeopathy, hypnotherapy.
Wow, she's going all out.
But nothing's a quick fix. Eventually, she realizes the pain is probably psychological.
That mind-body connection is powerful, especially with sex. It can be so frustrating to feel like something's wrong and not know how to fix it.
And she gains weight. Her body image suffers, and that affects her desire too.
So relatable for so many women.
Then yoga comes into her life, and it changes everything.
Yoga? Really?
It gives her strength, flexibility, and this sense of peace during a rough patch in her marriage. She even notices physical changes and says yoga is connected to her feeling more sensation during sex.
That's amazing. It's a great example of how taking care of yourself in one way can have these unexpected positive effects on other areas of your life.
And get this, she buys a string bikini. Not something she would have considered before.
That's a victory. It's about feeling comfortable, confident in your own body.
For sure. But then comes pregnancy, and early motherhood brings a whole new set of challenges.
Oh, of course.
She talks about conflicting advice on doing yoga while pregnant, and how she didn't experience that instant maternal bliss with breastfeeding that everyone talks about.
That honesty is refreshing, right? It's not always easy, those early days of motherhood.
It's not. But yoga helps her get back in touch with her body after giving birth. She's still up and down with her body image, but now she's really focused on raising her daughter to be body positive.
Setting a good example for the next generation, that's powerful.
They have trouble conceiving a second child, and it puts a strain on their relationship. Dry spells, arguments, Michael's out late a lot, and she blames herself.
Infertility is tough. It affects everything.
They do a trial separation, which turns out to be a good thing. They both realize they have stuff to work on, and they start putting in the effort to fix their marriage.
Sometimes you need that space to see things clearly.
So true. Then they go for fertility treatments, IUI, IVF, the whole thing.
That's a lot to go through.
Emotionally and physically draining.
Mhm.
But then, out of the blue, she gets pregnant naturally.
Oh, wow.
She couldn't believe it, kept checking the test. It's like life throws these curveballs.
And then there's the whole discussion of female Viagra, flabanserin.
Right, that medication.
It raises so many questions about female sexuality, how we medicalize it, and if there's always a pill for what's often a very complex issue.
The author actually points out this irony. Here she is, writing about boosting libido, having better orgasms, and she's struggling with those things herself.
It's that disconnect again, right? Like what we project versus what's really going on.
She gets into the different models of female sexual response, the ones by Kaplan and Besson.
Those are important.
They are. And she realizes that for women, desire doesn't always come before arousal.
Which challenges the traditional way we think about it. Basson's model is especially helpful. It acknowledges the different paths to arousal for women.
And then she talks about Emily Nagoski's book, Come As You Are, and the idea of sexual brakes and accelerators.
I love that book. It's so helpful for understanding how different things can affect our desire, positively or negatively.
And that leads to a better conversation with Michael about their mismatched libidos. It's not about blame, it's about understanding each other.
That shift in perspective can make a huge difference in a relationship.
So she starts out writing to fix herself, but her motivation changes. Now she wants to share what she calls the gospel truth about normal sexual experiences.
It's about empowering others with accurate information, taking away the shame, and helping people feel less alone in their experiences.
Towards the end, she revisits what happened with Travis and how hard it was to label it as rape.
Oh, that's heavy.
It is. The way society and the law define consent can make it so difficult to process what's happened to you.
Absolutely. And she talks about the research on men confusing sexual interest with consent and how common rape myths are. It's a wake-up call for everyone.
She even considers that maybe Travis didn't fully grasp what he was doing, that he was just following those harmful societal scripts,
That's a tough thought, but it underscores how crucial consent education is.
and how damaging those old messages like boys will be boys are.
We need to move past that toward a culture where everyone understands that consent has to be clear, enthusiastic, and ongoing.
And then there's this hopeful moment. She sees her young daughter setting boundaries, even at that age.
Kids get it intuitively sometimes.
It gives her hope. She's really passionate about teaching her daughter about body autonomy, saying no.
Equipping kids with that knowledge is so important. It sets them up for healthy relationships in the future.
And she remembers why she started writing about sex in the first place.
Yeah.
It was about her reclaiming her agency, her confidence, becoming whole again.
Such a personal journey.
Now, motherhood adds new layers, juggling work, worrying about her daughter's safety in the world.
That's parenthood, right? Those worries never really go away.
She's decided no more kids, uterus on lockdown, she says.
A woman owning her choices. That's great.
She's teaching her daughter about her body, using the right words, vulva, all that.
Normalizing those conversations is key.
And all the stuff about gender, privacy, healthy decisions. It's a lot to navigate as a parent.
I bet.
Her daughter's already asking about condoms.
Kids are curious. It's a great opportunity to have those open conversations.
That's how she sees it. She does feel this pressure as a sex writer to raise a sex-positive kid.
I can imagine. But consent education is important for all parents, not just the ones who write about sex.
Absolutely. And her motivation's changed. It's not just about her own healing anymore. It's about creating a better world for her daughter.
That's beautiful, turning your own experience into something that helps others.
So she decides to take a self-defense class, which was scary for her at first.
Good for her. That's taking control.
And she learns about empowerment, self-defense, ESD. It's not just about fighting. It's about recognizing how we're conditioned and learning to be assertive.
ESD acknowledges that while we can't control what others do, we can take steps to be safer and protect ourselves.
She talks about the self-defense paradox,
Right.
which basically says the perpetrator is always responsible, but we can still be proactive.
It's a subtle but important point. We can empower ourselves without blaming ourselves for what happens.
The ESD instructors teach her to trust her gut, to not worry so much about being polite if something feels off.
That's a good lesson for everyone.
And she mentions things like the Athena device, safety apps, organizations that teach consent to young people.
Those resources can make a huge difference. Information and support are key.
She even does advanced self-defense training, simulated attacks, breaking boards.
That's intense.
It's about facing your fears, realizing you're stronger than you think.
So inspiring.
So, wrapping up this deep dive, the author's story shows us how complicated it is to grow up and figure out sex, how early experiences can stick with us, how messed up societal expectations around female sexuality can be. But in the end, it's about her taking charge, understanding consent, and becoming an advocate.
For anyone listening, this is a reminder to keep learning, to talk openly about these things, and to reflect on your own experiences.
Here's something to think about. How much do our ideas about normal sex come from society, from our own past? And can we challenge those norms to create better lives, better relationships? What's our responsibility in building a world that's sex-positive and truly consent-aware? The author has a bunch of resources in her notes. Go check those out. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for listening, everyone.